Now, in recent weeks, chilling incidents of gender-based violence ending in femicide as well as child murders have left communities and parts of KwaZulu-Natal shocked and traumatized. Gender-based violence and femicide has been highlighted as a pandemic in South Africa. There's been a noticeable rise in cases in KZN. Now, for a discussion on this, I'm joined by crime expert Calvin Rafadi. Calvin, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this afternoon. Why is crime, especially violent crime, so prevalent in areas such as KZN? What do you think are the primary factors that are contributing towards this?
Good afternoon and good afternoon to your viewers. Indeed, KZN is one of the very most notorious areas, and we thought by now the threat analysis could have proven otherwise that we indeed need serious policing in those areas. So what we can say, there's a high number of firearms in those areas, and there's a lot of shootings whereby there's mostly revenge killings, and especially during festive season, because I'll tell you why. Most of some of these victims, if you have to profile them, they don't reside in those areas, even that they originally from there. But during this time, when they go and visit homes, that's when they get killed and murdered for that matter.
You speak about policing, and we've seen an uptake with regards to just law enforcement within that area. How effective have those law enforcement strategies in combating violent crime in KZN been, and what challenges do you think that the police are currently facing in addressing these issues?
I think the problem, like I said, by now it could have been properly diagnosed. The threat analysis could have proven to them that we need more policing in those areas. But normally in KZN, whenever they do the Imbizo crime awareness, launching some of these crime combating issues, they only mainly focus around the beach areas in the CBDs, and that's why you see most of our leaders even going to such Imbizos. And we are saying that there are areas in the rural outskirts where murder is at a high rate. And those areas, even there are challenges that, police, they will say they can't patrol in some of those areas. But let us also use technology like your drones. Let's use the horse patrolling, the mounted police to go and raid those particular areas, especially that we've got what we call, and it's supposed to be rolled out, Operation Shanyela. Why are they not stop search and seizure of firearms all the time? You hardly see a roadblock in some of those areas, and it's a big problem.
How much of inroads, I mean, you speak of technology, how much of inroads have we made as a country as a whole with regards to using technology for combating crime? The usage of drones, like you mentioned, we saw with the border management earlier on in last week, where they used those drones to combat and see people that are coming into the country illegally. Are we making a way forward?
I would say we're making some inroads, but because of most of our police are not skilled to use those technologies. So private securities, that's why we welcome the partnership as them, being one of the extended or multiplier force, because they are the ones who can afford those drones. They are the ones who knows the skill of how to use that technology, but feeding, working in hand with the police. So that's why we see some of the inroads. But, in previously, we've got helicopters, choppers that the police are using. Let's also deploy them in some of those areas. Let's also deploy a dog unit in some of those areas. But at the same time, we have seen that Operation Shanyela has yielded most results where it originated, which is Gauteng. Let's roll it out properly, even in KZN. It was launched, I think, in October or August, but we don't see a lot of activities, from Operation Shanyela.
You also mentioned that a lot of the policing happens more in urban areas, and there's not much of a visibility in the rural areas when it comes to the initiatives and the campaigns. So then what role would community policing play in reducing crime? And are there communities that we can take as an example in terms of how they've successfully initiated such community policing initiatives within those regions?
Well, there are quite a few. It's just that I wouldn't have a list with me. But what we can say is that with KZN, I heard on the previous interview when Mr. Senzo Mtunu was speaking, there's a big challenge and a big problem of isn't donors in most of those areas in the rural outskirts. And that particular problem, it also flows as far as to Johannesburg hostels, because of most of their fights, it tends amount for people getting killed, and at the very, very early ages, whereby 26, less than 40 euros, they kill one another as part of the revenge. They fight for tabs, they fight for whatever the dispute that they fight for. But isn't donors, I think we need to have a serious talk with them, especially when it comes to KZN issues. Remember, Mr. Minister Bekikela once said that KZN and Johannesburg, most of the hostels, they are more intertwined. The guys, they commit crime, they run to Joburg. Some, they leave Joburg, they go and commit crimes, in KZN. So we really have a serious problem, and we need to address it together with these particular stakeholders of isn't donors. So perhaps controllers need to come on board, and also Department of Correctional Services, because some of these killings or shootings, they're even orchestrated as far as into prison.
So then how important is early interventions in addressing the root causes of violence?
Yeah, like we said, the threat analysis, whenever you deal with a problem, one needs to properly diagnose it. So crime intelligence must give us, proper stats on who are the people who are involved, what challenges we have. Because another thing with KZN, and more especially, like I always say, I'm not going to shy away that some of the Sangomas, they're in cahoots with criminals, because that's why even in the States, you find a gun being used multiple times in committing murders. It's because the very same gun, there are Sangomas that perform rituals on that particular firearm. There are Sangomas that perform certain rituals in giving these boys to say they will be under a particular protection. And these boys, they confess some of these crimes, horrific crimes to them. Let them come forward with such information and give it to the police so that we can root out these guns and root out these criminals.
What do heightened levels of violence and crime do with regards to a perception that a community will then have with the police within those areas? Is there enough trust in the policing system for crime not to escalate in the way that it does?
People are scared to come forward or be seen talking to the police. So people, they just, keep quiet. Even though they know who have committed those particular horrific crimes, but people are scared, and we've seen this in Eastern Cape. Even though for now, we don't yet know what was the motive of Lisukisiki. We welcome those arrests, but we don't know what was the motive. So what we are saying is that's why SAPS had to establish anonymous tip of line of extortion and other related violent crime, but people are scared to come forward with the information. I was even suggesting to some of my team to say the problem areas like hotspots, why don't we have at least 2 police station commanders in those areas so that we can, have 2 minds, great minds that can tackle and deal decisively with crime.
Are we becoming desensitized as a society when it comes to violent crimes?
The worrying thing is that, the communities, they'll end up taking law into their own hands. And like I said, they fear, but, if they kill one of your family members and people don't even have trust in the police or that the police will deal with that particular crime, people will end up, committing mob justice and vigilantism, and we don't welcome that. So let us give information to the police, but at the same time, crime intelligence, they need to do threat analysis. Areas that are hotspot, let us have stop and search, let us raid them, let's root out the guns, because these guns, they are the ones that are committing these horrific crimes.
All right, Calvin Rafadi, thank you so much for your time and for joining us. Certainly an issue that has plagued South Africa as a whole, but most importantly, the province of KwaZulu-Natal.